The ambassador joined the Foreign Service in 1965. He had received a degree in economics from Cairo University the same year. He's been posted in several countries, including serving as ambassador of Romania from 1975 to 1980. He has also served as the director of the Foreign Minister's Office and the head of the Department on Documentation and the Department on Special Offices before becoming ambassador here in 1990. I should note, as an indication of the ambassador's interests and intellectual concerns, that he's the author of several publications in Arabic, but all with topics that suggest something about those interests. He has written about several dimensions of Syrian history, especially its political process, and the Palestinian arrangements, and in 1987 on the American view of the Middle East. The ambassador's intellectual interests are substantial. His reputation comes before him. Many of you read the Mark Matthews coverage, I think, in this morning's Sun. We look forward very much, Mr. Ambassador, to you sharing your wisdom with us. It's my great pleasure to present His Excellency Walid Al-Moualem.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Dr. Bird, the Baltimore Council on Foreign Affairs. I want to thank you all because you convinced me to leave the Beltway. And you are right. I'm happy to express my country's support for the success of the Secretary General mission in Baghdad. We feel that wisdom prevails in solving this recent crisis with Iraq, and we hope that not only the United States, but the region also, the world, will learn lessons from this crisis, the way it's solved, the way we are demanding Iraq to implement Security Council resolution, and to see that Middle East is not only this part of the region, but also what we called the Levant also. My subject here is peace and what are the Syrian vision for peace, because I served here not as ambassador only, but also as a chief negotiator with the Israeli counterpart during 5 years of talk. In the first Gulf crisis, when the Iraqi invaded Kuwait, the American at that time, it is fresh memory, it is not long history, 7 years ago, composed a coalition to liberate Kuwait. And Syria participated in this coalition. We sent our troops to Saudi Arabia to liberate Kuwait. We stand against Iraq, and Iraq is an Arab country because we believe that there's no right for any nation to occupy and demolish all or part of the territories of other country. We stand because part of our territories, the Golan Heights, are occupied by Israel since the war of June 1967. And our people keen to see this part of Syria, this essential part of Syria, liberated. As we saw, the American and the international coalition stand against the Iraqi invasion to Kuwait, as the United States stand today to see Iraq implementing the United Nations Security Council resolution. Also in the other part of the region, there are Security Council resolution, namely 242, 338, and 425 for Lebanon, still needs to be implemented. When the Americans initiated the peace process in April 1991, they told us, Secretary Baker at that time told us, this initiative is serving the vital interest of the United States, it's serving the vital interest of the Israelis and the Arab nation. This initiative, which launched in April 1991, after 2 months of liberating Kuwait, which happened today, yesterday I think, based essentially on fulfilling the Security Council resolution to end the Arab-Israeli conflict. And because we felt for the first time that this initiative is tackling the whole issue of the Arab-Israeli conflict, its purpose to achieve comprehensive peace between Israel and its neighbors, between Israel and the Palestinians, we applaud to this initiative, and we participated in Madrid Peace Conference in November 1991. And since then, we entered in direct bilateral negotiation with the Israelis. We had, since December 1991, many sessions, many talks. We spent hours and hours of talks. These talks were ups and downs. But at the end, especially when we went to Y Plantation in Maryland, we achieved around 70% of our agreement. I remember on 26th of February, 1996, this was my last meeting with Mr. Uri Savir, the chief negotiator on behalf of Israel. We were racing with the time. We were challenging all the logic which used to feel or to say that Syria and Israel never succeed to come together for an agreement. Unfortunately, the same today, 2 years ago, our talks were interrupted. Our talks interrupted because the Israelis informed us through the American that they cannot continue this talk. Prime Minister Perez at that time decided to go to early election. Then it was the Israeli aggression in South Lebanon. Then it was the early election with its result. the Likud win, Prime Minister Netanyahu became Prime Minister, and since then, there is no talks between Syria and Israel. Where we stand today, we said we don't interfere who is the Prime Minister in Israel, who governs Israel. This is an Israeli affair. We are ready to return back tomorrow for the talk, to resume the talk. The word resume meaning that we need to resume from where we left off on the same day of February 1996. Where we left off, this means we are serious because we want to build on what we achieved 5 years ago of talks. We will not return to square one in our talks, so we exhaust another 5 years, and who knows who will come after Netanyahu, and who knows when we reach the final agreement, maybe we need another 50 years. So we are ready to return back tomorrow if the Israelis are ready to build on what it was achieved. In the talks with the American presence, with us in the room, we have thousands and thousands of pages of the minutes of the talks. We have documents, but we will not return to square one because the side who wants to return to square one, to start from scratch, I think this is the side who is not serious. We want to build on the 70% we achieved. So in several months, from when we resume, we achieve the final document, which I am sure will change the history and the future of the Middle East. I will let you gentlemen the time. I'm ready to answer any question is in your mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. The floor will be open for questions. The question, in short, is if there's an agreement about a gradual withdrawal from the Golan Heights, is that tantamount to a peace settlement?
Well, what we face today is not the type how the Israeli will execute their full withdrawal. In 1994, in July 1994, the American told us that Prime Minister Ishaq Rabin is committed to fully withdraw from the Golan Heights to the line of 4 June 1967. From that moment, we start to tackle in discussion and in details the other legs of the table. He used to specify 4 legs for the agreement between Syria and Israel. He used to speak about withdrawal, about normalization, about security arrangements, and about the timetable of fulfillment. On the same year, in September 1994, I presented to Itamar Rabinovich, who was ambassador in Washington, a document specifying the links between the 4 legs of the agreement. And at that time, Prime Minister Rabin considered this document as a working document for the negotiation. And we start to tackle each issue. At that time, the Israelis suggested 2 phases of withdrawal, not gradual, 2 phases of withdrawal. And we specify on each phase the obligation of each side. What type of security arrangement, what type of normalization, what is the timetable table for each phase. I hope I could answer your question.
Would you comment on your relations with Turkey and Turkey's possible role in the peace process?
Without doubt, this is an important question. Turkey is an essential part of the Middle East. Turkey can play two roles. One role, which we see today, is disturbing peace between Syria and Israel. But the other constructive role, which the Turks can play, is when they got good relation with Syria and Israel, to urge both sides to reach an agreement where Turkey can play not only an essential role in water issues, but also in commerce, in relations, in stability and security of the region. Unfortunately, Turkey today is not playing this role.
Would you please, Mr. Ambassador, explain your relationship to Lebanon, and then also whatever you'd like to say about Hezbollah would be appreciated also.
Well, the gentleman question needs a map to explain that Syria and Lebanon is a special case for their special relationship historically and geographically, which is distinguished than any Syrian relation with any Arab countries, for the fact of history and geography, and for the fact that the Syrian and Lebanese are one people living in two states. This relation obliged Syria to stand with Lebanon since 1975, when the civil war starts in Lebanon. Our purpose not to dominate Lebanon, but to prevent dismantling Lebanon, to assure the unity of the Lebanese, whether they are Muslim, Christian, Shia, Druze, they are one people. Second, you can ask any Lebanese, what is his choice? He has as neighbor Syria and Israel. I am sure he will choose Syria. Thirdly, yes, we have relation not only with Hezbollah. We have good relation with any resistance, national resistance for an occupation. Israel occupies south of Lebanon. It is illegitimate occupation, and we are helping. This is not only Syrian duty, anybody duty, any country duty. As we stand against Hitler, and we help resistance against the occupation of Germany to certain part in Europe, we must also help the Lebanese national resistance against the Israeli occupation. We are not shy of this relation.
Would you comment on Israel's position
Without doubt.
that their occupation of Lebanon is in self-defense?
Yes. Well, just for history record, Hezbollah created in 1983, not in 1982. 82 was the Israeli invasion to Lebanon, and Hezbollah created after 1 year of this invasion. The need to resist the invasion created Hezbollah. Second, I don't know in international law what you call an Israeli military presence on the territories of an independent country crossing their international border since 1982 till 1998, whether it is self-defense or occupation. I think the international law considers it occupation. Thirdly, as I said, nobody is questioning today whether he needs to resist Israel in proper Israel or on its own territory. The Lebanese resistance are resisting Israel on Lebanese territories. This is legitimate, sir.
Is there a double standard with respect to UN resolutions?
Well, I think the question itself answering itself. It doesn't need an ambassador to answer it. It's clear to everybody. Yes, there is double standard. Not my saying, everybody is feeling this. Because, in fact, Middle East is vital region, not only for the American interest, for the world. It has 75% of the oil reservoir, but it is vital also for other nations living in the Middle East, Turkey, Israel, as long as the Arab. I agree with you. To implement Security Council resolution is an obligation for any nation. United States has double obligation because the United States is permanent member of the Security Council. And today it is the unique superpower. So this is the feeling in the Arab world. For that, this time, majorities of the Arab world stand with the Iraqi people. I can't say with the Iraqi regime, but stand with the Iraqi people. Because they refused two things. They refused the double standard, and they refused Netanyahu killing peace process. Thank you.
The question is, with respect to the United States playing the role of mediator between Israel and Syria and not doing so today, what is the American position on mediation?
Well, in fact, until February 1996, the United States role was not only mediator, but active partner. And they played this role, and it was seen in the talks of Maryland. But since the election of the Prime Minister Netanyahu, I believe that the American role is not today the strategic role of a superpower. They said the Israelis cannot digest moving on two tracks together. Okay. They said the Israeli cannot give concessions on two tracks together. We said, okay, what is your priority? They said the Palestinian track. We said we are happy to see our Palestinian brother solving their problem with the Israelis. They focused on the Palestinian track. Since Netanyahu became Prime Minister, I can't tell you today where is the Palestinian track, what's happened to the Palestinian track. I will focus on your question, what's happened to the American role. I think Netanyahu succeeded in bringing the American strategic role to the details of the details on the Palestinian track, so the American missed insight. So I don't feel the American role today as comprehensive, strategic as I was feeling it 2 years ago. Well, in the peace process, I can't say this. The question was double standard in implementing Security Council resolution on one part of the Middle East because it is on Iraq and not implementing them on the other part on an initiative they created. They signed a document called the Reference of Madrid Conference stating the Security Council resolutions. They are not doing much in implementing them.
The observation was that Americans believe in certain things like freedom of speech and free elections. Would you care to comment on what Syria believes is most important in its political system?
Well, we believe in Syria that the best political system is what the Syrians see it, not what the Syrians see it, not what the Americans see how the Syrian system will be. Because did I mention here the affair of Monica Lewinsky? I did not interfere.
The most relevant question, do you see a growing role for the Russians and others as international mediators, and specifically how would you see it for Syrian affairs?
Well, I will answer this question honestly, not as diplomat, but as I felt it. We must not have illusion about the strategical and the special relation between the United States and Israel. This fact gave the American role its dimension. The Israelis, I'm not speaking about today, but previously, this is what we felt, listened to the American in certain extent. At least the late Prime Minister Rabin was aware about the depths and the importance of the Israeli-American relation. He was aware about the military, the economical, the financial support the United States grant to Israel yearly. So today I can tell you the situation is similar. I have doubt, and I told my doubt to Dennis Ross many times, that sometimes some politics here concerning Middle East are planned in Tel Aviv. Are planned in Tel Aviv. Because the situation needs this frankness. For this reason, I can see the French, the European role, as a supporting role for the American role, as encouraging role for the American to be more active. But they cannot replace the American role. They cannot, the European alone, mediate to make peace between the Arab nation and Israel. It has to be an essential American role and duty and responsibility.
The question is whether you would comment on the extent to which Arab countries, including Syria, do or do not put pressure on Saddam Hussein with respect to weapons of mass destruction.
Not the Iraqi people, Saddam Hussein. Yeah.
Well, first, you need to be an Arab to understand the situation. As an Arab, the threat to me of mass destruction weapon comes from Israel, nuclear capacity. This is a free country. We just heard free. I said not as an American, I said as an Arab. You need to live there to know from where the danger comes to you. As an Arab, and part of my territories are under occupation, because the Israeli expansionist policies, I feel what Israel has of nuclear, chemical, biological weapons is threatening me. But in the same time, I urge the whole region, Iraq, Israel, Syria, all the countries in the region, to sit together in an international forum under the auspices of the United Nations to make this region free of mass destruction, weapons, nuclear, biological, and chemical, and Syria will be first to participate.
If the Israelis were to withdraw from southern Lebanon, what would you do to help ensure that guerrilla action was not launched from those territories against Israel?
Well, as I said in my introduction, there is actually a Security Council resolution number 425 ask Israel to withdraw from south of Lebanon without any condition. If your question means that Israel will implement this resolution and will withdraw unconditionally from south of Lebanon, Syria will applaud to Israel. But will applaud. But the other part of your question, what Syria will do with Hezbollah? We will participate with Hezbollah, its victory. Because Hezbollah, by its resistance, obliged Israel not only to recognize Security Council Resolution 425, but also to oblige Israel to withdraw unconditionally from south of Lebanon. So we'll participate Hezbollah, its victory. But what to do after that? We are not policemen. For Israel to protect its northern border when Israel is still occupying our Golan Heights.
There are two observations or questions. One, how does the original Arab nations attack in 1967 play out in current politics? And then your second question was, remind me. The fact that many people believe that Netanyahu came to power because of terrorist attacks, that it influenced the margin of victory.
First of all, the first part of your question, also a lesson from history. I want to remind you that war of the 5th June 1967 started on the 5th June of 1967. But on the Syrian front, it started on 9 June 67, when the Israeli bombarded the American warship called Liberty. They came to attack Syria on 9 June 1967. And I refer you to the memoir of the Minister of Defense at that time, Moshe Dayan. He recognized in his memory that Israel initiated attack on Syria because the water resources lies in the Golan Heights. Your second part, yes, it was 4 bombs. Not only killed many Israelis, but also maybe killed the Syrian talk. So we were victim as negotiator on these bombs. But we are negotiating to reach an agreement to prevent these bombs. For that, peace is essential. No security without peace. Peace can bring security for all sides.
If Israel would return the Golan Heights, what else would it take? if anything, to bring about a peace treaty?
I wish you this moment you are the Prime Minister of Israel. Well, I tell you, not too much. It will, if I have my territories back, I am ready for normal peaceful relation with Israel. I am ready for balanced, equivalent security arrangements which prevents daily clashes, major wars, sudden wars, which assure security for both sides. That means no security of one side will be on the account of security of the other side. I'm ready for it tomorrow.
Would Syria welcome a rapprochement between Iran and the United States as a means of containing Iraq?
Well, we prefer good relation between the United States and Iran for the interest of both people, not as a factor of disturbance in the Middle East. We did our best with the Iranians to play a role, positive role, in the stability and security of the Middle East.
Do you believe that a Saddam-less Iraq would be more of a danger in the Middle East or less?
Well, I tell you frankly, Syria, especially Syria, never enjoys good relation with Saddam. We were away before the American. We don't have diplomatic relation with Iraq since 1980. So I don't see that Saddam is Iraq, but we do keen on the unity and territorial integrity of Iraq.
There was an interest in getting your opinion about the dynamics of internal Iraqi political life and whether that dynamic, as much as the individual of Saddam, is a problem from the American viewpoint.
Well, I don't see that any regime is a problem for the United States, but the fact is there is rules in the international law. Each country has not to interfere on the leadership of other country. Second, the people has to choose their leadership. This is a rule of international law. Many rules in the law are not practiced. Thirdly, I don't see that any regime can be a symbol of the unity and territorial integrity of any country.
The New York Times reported that the CIA was dusting off plans to subvert Saddam. If those were to be put in action, would Syria object?
First of all, I object on CIA. Second, I don't see how CIA can topple Saddam. They have previous experiences in Erbil, and they failed. Why you need to pay from your tax money for a failure operation?
If Lebanon and Syria really are the same people, why are they not yet one country?
This is a very important question. I refer you to 1917, to two British and the French foreign minister called Sykes-Picot, who divided the greater Syria at that time. You need to ask them why. Anyway, we believe in Arab unity, but not based on invasion and military force, but based on the willingness of its people.
Did the report that the Mossad was fabricating, the report of Syria planning to launch a war against Israel, interfere with the peace talks?
First of all, you refer to an area to the period of spring and autumn of last year, when these stories appears. At that time, we have no talks. So it has no influence. Second, it did a tension between Syria and Israel, it's sure. And sometimes in a situation of no war, no peace, no contacts, no negotiation, this will lead to miscalculation. And miscalculation many times in history led to wars. But fortunately, at the end, the Americans interfered for the first time in 2 years to prevent this misunderstanding.
Would you consider increasing the power of Arab countries by denominating oil revenue in something other than dollars, lessening the influence of the United States?
Well, first of all, when I speak about Arab unity, the Arab nation is not only Muslims. We have Christians. They are brothers to the Muslims. We speak about the unity of all these. We sympathize with the Muslim nations, but this doesn't mean that we work for the unity with the Muslim nations. We look for the solidarity of all the peoples who pray for one God. This is Islam, in fact, which recognized Judaism and Christianity, all of us praying for one God. Second, well, if I am not having too much dollars in my pocket, I can't ask the people who has their revenue of oil with many dollars not to take them by gold or not dollar. This is their affair. I know I like to have my salary at the end of each month in dollars.
Is there a long-range plan to attract friendly Americans to do business in Syria?
Well, friendly, I am sure if they have money, they will be. It is a very important question, really, because I think to have this mutual base of interest, economical interest, is creating friendship between people. Not only interest and benefit, but friendship. I urge many companies to work in Syria. We have a law number 10, which gives guarantee for investors abroad who wants to invest in Syria. This law has many benefits for any company or individual who wants to invest in Syria. We are opening our economy, not like the Soviet and the Russian and other immediately. We are opening it gradually because we don't want to have a crisis. Fortunately, we achieve many achievements. We still need to work hard. We still need many American companies to come to invest in Syria. We have some dozen, but we need more.
Literally, what incentives do you have in your resources to attract outside capital?
We have each year 600,000 barrels of oil. We have natural gas resources. We have agriculture. We are very rich in agriculture. The Syrian cotton is one of the best in the world. We developed textile industry. We developed many middle and lightweight industries. And we have very important location and weather for tourists. We are a country In Damascus, for example, the age of Damascus is 7,000 years. It is the first inhabitant city in the world. I hope I attracted you.
Would you give a brief history of the Golan?
Very brief history. Golan Heights was and still and will be a part of Syria. Historically, never been part of Israel or Palestine. Also, Sykes-Picot Agreement, which I referred, and then when the British and the French drew the borders of this region called the Greater Syria, they never put Golan Heights on Palestine. It was always Syrian. It's happened, the Israeli captured it after 1967 war.
Would you comment on the water issue and whether it would be of value to discuss that single issue prior to some other matters?
Not prior of other matters, but within the package of a deal. I think this is a very important question because we are in a region, lack of water resources. And water could be a permanent issue for conflicts. So for that, during the talks in Maryland, I suggested to my counterpart a plan how to tackle the water issue. I said, if we will tackle water issue between Syria and Israel, we are provoking the international law because this water resources, the Jordan rivers, is not crossing Syria and Israel alone. It crosses Jordan, the West Bank, and it has something to do with Lebanon. So first, we need to tackle it as these countries. Second, if we tackle it as this country, we will be like poor people who has only $1 and there are 5, they want to divide the $1 on 5. When we have our neighbors who has rich, Turkey is the richest country of water resources. And Turkey has 2 rivers crossing internationally the Syrian and Iraqi borders. These are the Euphrates and Tigray are international rivers. So we need to hold a regional conference, which Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Palestinian, and Israel, and maybe Egypt if they want. Regional meetings for water issue with the World Bank, with many institutes relating with water. First, we need to put a rules of the division of international water, which implemented in the south as it is implemented in the north, in the west as it is in the east, according to international law. Second, we need to educate people how they consume water and how they reserve water, because this is very important like oil. Thirdly, we need the World Bank and investors to encourage them to come to this region to study and to invest in increasing water resources. This was our plan.
In light of your view of the unity of the Lebanese and Syrian people, what would be your intention to withdraw your forces and presence from Lebanon if the Israelis did from the south?
Well, I heard tonight 2 views, one questioning our presence in Lebanon, the other one questioning why we are not united with Lebanon. Anyway, first of all, Syrian presence in Lebanon returns back to 1975. The cause was the civil war in Lebanon. We came invited by the Lebanese legitimate government. I said legitimate government because I recognize the independence of Lebanon. And I mentioned we are one people living in 2 states. Second, the Israeli occupation came in 1982. Lebanon, with the Israelis, are not an Arabs. Syria with Lebanon is two Arab countries. So our presence in Lebanon is there as long as the Lebanese government wants us to be there. If they find us, we fulfilled our duty and task, let them tell us, but it has nothing to do with the Israeli occupation to south of Lebanon.
The question was, if there was peace between Syria and Israel, would that affect the economy of Syria? You might comment in general about the role of the economy in a peace process.
Without doubt. Well, today, if we look at the region, we find that each side is spending an important amount of its revenue or income on a type of raising arms and armaments, which each 5 years, each side has to throw it to buy a new one. Because there are limitations of this region. Peace is preventing this, or part of it, to draw this revenue, part of this revenue, for education, for better well-being of each side people, because you will live in an atmosphere of security. Second, we know that you cannot build peace if you said this is the end of the situation of war and full stop. We know that to build peace, to have your territories back, you have requirements to the other side, normal peaceful relation as any neighboring countries. But I'm not telling you that I will open my economy, because each side, as United States and Mexico, as United States and Canada, as United States and the European, as the United States and Japan, each side has to look for its own people interest. And this is how you build a lasting peace.
Mr. Ambassador, your endurance is extraordinary. Your answers have been of the highest quality and very complete and very dense. So in a relatively short period of time, we've been marvelously well informed. We're deeply grateful for you being with us.
Thank you very much.